Today we're going to we'll go around and do introductions. We'll talk a little bit about federal policy and then state policy. As I said, even though it's vacation time, there seems to be lots of movement. And just so everybody knows what's going on with Cameo, we do a weekly, very quick half-hour state and federal small business update with Small Business Majority at 10 a.m. on Fridays. This one that we're doing today is going to go definitely more in depth than what they do. Theirs is for small business owners as well as whoever's interested, but we're going to go a little deeper into some of the policy issues. And then our Advocacy Day is July 21st. So if you haven't registered, Melissa will pop the link in. A couple people have asked me about the ticket prices. There is no difference between the free and the $25. You know, we ask people to chip in a little bit of money to help us cover our advocacy costs, just, you know, because that's what we do, and we don't, it's hard to fundraise for that. So we're asking you to support our efforts. If you can, that would be great. If not, we still want you to attend. We need your bodies as well as we need your voice as well as the support. And also we are very excited to announce that Microlending Essentials is going on virtual on August 11th. It's going to be a 6-week course, 2 hours a week on Tuesdays. August 11th is a Tuesday from 1 to 3. So be on the lookout for that class starting next week. We'll start to post the registration link. It is, Susan Brown has taught it about a half a dozen times. And it's a great class. And so registration will be open next week. And as always, you know where our Cameo resource page is. So without further ado, I'd like to go into our the federal. First let's do introductions with everybody. And we have a nice small group, so I would like to have everybody say hello. And I'm just going to call you on the order I see you on my screen. First one is Melissa, if you want to say hi to everybody. Melissa's
hi, everyone. I work with Cameo. I'm the SoCal program manager, and I work closely with Heidi, especially on projects like our upcoming Advocacy Day.
Melissa's been an awesome addition to our team this year, so thanks, Melissa. Nathaniel, hi.
Hi there. Hi. I'm Nathaniel Owen. I'm the director of Fondo Adelante, which is the CDFI affiliate of Mission Economic Development Agency in San Francisco.
Excellent. Sarah.
Hi, everybody. This is Sarah from Working Solutions CDFI. We serve the 9 Bay Area microlender for early stage and startup businesses.
Great. And next on my screen is Chuck, who has a fun background. Oh, you changed it. Come on, put your fun one back. We're among friends here. We're among friends.
That was for a Rotary meeting I had. We all had to be superheroes, so I was underdog. Yeah, I'm Chuck Eason. I'm the statewide director for business and entrepreneurship for the California Community Colleges, and I also do counseling and advising for the Small Business Development Center side, so that impacts me for 85. So.
And what important thing is?
Oh, yes, and I am also advisory board member for Cameo as well.
Yeah, excellent. Lori. Lori might be dealing with some little ones having lunch. So Lori's from Cal Coastal. We'll move on to Chelsea.
Hi, this is Chelsea Irvine, and I'm the Community Resource Manager at 3Core. We're the Economic Development District for Butte, Glen, and Tehama counties up in the North State.
Great, thanks. I lost there we go. I lost my, when you share your screen and you have your slideshow up, it really kind of makes your monitors go funny. Next up is Ron. Hi, Ron.
Hi, Ron Fong, Executive Director of the Asian Pacific Islander Small Business Program in Los Angeles.
Thanks, Ron. And next up I have Elise.
Hey, I'm Elise Baker. I'm from Axion in San Diego. We're a CDFI.
Oh, fabulous. Hi, Elise. How are you? Nice to hear you and nice to meet you. Kaya.
Hi everyone, Kaya Heron, Director of Community Engagement and Advocacy for the Fresno Metro Black Chamber of Commerce here in the city of Fresno.
And brand new Cameo member this year. Excellent. George. George has been one of my most faithful attendees.
Hi, this is Jork. Letkeman with OSED, Fresno.
Excellent. And Tony, say hello.
Hello, everybody. This is Tony Simons, Assembly Committee on Jobs, Economic Development, and the Economy. Hope everybody's having a good Friday.
Thanks, Tony. Thanks for joining us. And Erwin.
Hello, Erwin Reeves, FDIC from the San Francisco region, and I cover the Bay Area, the 12-county combined statistical area. Hello, everyone. Good Friday.
Thanks for joining us. And last but not least, Babita.
Hi, this is Bobby from PACE. We have CDFI based in downtown LA. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, thanks. And, you know, I like to have everybody introduce yourselves because I want to, we're going to go through some of the things that have been happening and that are happening on the federal level, and then as well as the state level. But we also want to have a discussion, and I want you guys to ask questions, and I need some of your feedback on how Cameo should respond to a couple of big issues, and want to know where people stand. So without further ado, I'm going to go back to sharing my screen. And you should see the slideshow at this point. So what's going on in the federal level? The federal level, everybody might know that the PPP data came out earlier this week on Monday. I have tasked Melissa, she's very excited to do this next week, but because we've been working on a couple other things, haven't got to it, to kind of do a dive into how that has gone for California and how our members have done in issuing the PPP loans. We do have some big overall numbers to share with you. I'll share with you in a minute or two. But the data did come out. They list every loan not with a business name under 150 and over 150,000. I think they list the business name. So it's really a wealth of information. I did take a glance at it. From what I recall, is Cameo members did about 4,000 loans for something like $130 million. There's some really interesting statistics. About 25% of the loans that went to California were really small, like under 1,000. One even got a PPP loan for $1. I'm not sure what that's all about. Yeah, really, the data is really interesting. Unfortunately, a lot of people did not fill out the demographic data. I think about 75% of the people under 150, I haven't looked at the over 150 yet, did not fill out whether or not what their ethnicity or racial makeup was. So it's not going to, I don't know how possible it's going to be to actually tease out who got what. So we'll have to get more information on that. There'll probably be more research needed. What's some of the ideas? I have these bullet points floating. Everybody knows that Congress is still, thinking about passing another COVID package, and some of the ideas being floated are in the top bullets, and some of the things that have been kind of on the table, kind of not, but things that we care about and that we've heard that our members care about are in the bottom one. So the administration has asked Congress to pass a bill by August, the next step in COVID relief. There is some bipartisan agreement that something will be passed before everybody goes out in September when, it is an election season. We've talked about the HEROES Act that passed the House of Representatives. There was a lot of great stuff in there. It has not been taken up by the Senate. We do hear that one of the Senate's main concern is liability. Looking at some of the data, you might understand why that might be, but there is a real concern about liability on behalf of businesses, and whether or not the business owners will be liable. I know there's a lot of, you guys have all told us about issues, people not being able to hire people back because they were earning more on unemployment and all sorts of things like that. So stay tuned. They're on vacation this week. I think they come back. I'm not sure when they come back. I do believe it's next week. So things should start to move a little bit more then. A couple of ideas that are on the table. There is a PPP forgiveness proposal that would forgive any loans less than $150,000 with just a one-page application. It would save, that is S4117. In case anybody is interested, Cameo, and I'll pop that into chat. Cameo is a signatory on that, and we signed the letter of support for that. It would save about $7 billion, less than, let's see, 85 PPP loans of 150 and under account for 85% of total PPP recipients, but less than 26% of the dollars. So making this, expediting this process would help a lot of small businesses and help the ones who got small loans, as well as save $7 billion in paperwork. So we did support that. There's also some idea that people could apply for a second PPP loan. That sounds like a good thing. We know that 2.5 months isn't necessarily enough to recover. We see that people are here, reopening has stalled. Things seem to not be improving, but getting worse. So a second loan is definitely needed by many businesses. So we are supporting that idea as well. In California, we're lucky. Our two senators support the CDFI fund. There is a push by the CDFI fund to get $1 billion for it. It's now, I'll show you the appropriations lines, but it's now at around 268, if I remember correctly, is what the fiscal year fund is for now. So this would almost quadruple it. And as the CDFIs have been doing a great job getting out PPP loans. So for their size and their asset size, they've been doing much better than the big banks on getting PPP out, and especially to the communities that we care about. There is a proposal by Senator Booker and Senator Daines. I'm just going to read a little bit from the press release. It's a $50 billion. This came out in April, but there is support for state and local grants for $50 billion proposal to provide greater relief to small businesses left out of PPP. it would basically direct assistance to cities, counties, and states to seed and scale local relief funds targeting businesses with 20 employees or less, or businesses with 50 employees or less located in low-income neighborhoods. So this is would build on what's already happening. I think several of you have been working on funds, grant funds to give out. So this would, we keep hearing we want more funds and more funds for small businesses. And this is a proposal that would do that. So we would love to see this happen in the federal, in the federal proposals. Don't know how much traction it actually has, but it is a bipartisan letter. It was Gaines is a Republican from Montana. Daines, not Gaines, sorry, is a Republican from Montana. And I know there has been some rumblings by other people in the Senate. I don't remember his name, but I know he's from Missouri, about just give small businesses grants. So that's what they need. They need grants. That's also a racial equity issue that I've heard a lot as well, is that the disinvestment in the Black community and other communities of color, it's time to kind of reverse that. And they've been disproportionately harmed by COVID. So if anybody wants to talk about that, we can when we get to discussion points. And then two other pieces that Cameo has been supportive of is the reauthorization of state small business credit initiative. That comes from the Great Recession. That money went down from in California to the state loan guarantee program, and the CalCap program. We'd like to see it revived this time. I'm not so sure it's being included in any of the proposals that are out there, as well as responsible business lending guardrails. Everybody, that's a issue near and dear to Cameo's heart, many of your hearts. Somebody asked me if we can wave a magic wand, and that was one of the pieces that we'd obviously like to see because of, potential harm and predatory lending. So I think we've talked about that quite a bit in the past with this group. Thought I'd give you guys a little update on the PPP and the EIDL numbers. So while PPP was slowing, they only did 11 billion in June. EIDL, which was for a long time was operating at a snail's pace, did $78 billion in the EIDL loan, economic injury disaster loans. Remember, those are long-term low interest rates. So those are actually really good. The activity more than doubled. You can see in the US, there's 2.2 million EIDL loans that have been approved for a total of almost 135 billion. California got about 17% of that. And these percentages have remained fairly steady over the last time that I've looked, at least for the last month. And we got about 18.4% of the dollars. So a little bit more than our share in the EIDL loans, and everybody can pat themselves on the back, because I know a lot of the Cameo members have been working really hard on trying to help their business owners qualify for those. Advances, the advances were about 5 million overall, with California coming in at 717,000, with about almost 15% of those. And the advances that were approved for in the dollar amount, it was about 16 billion, and California got about 2.3 billion of that. And as you can see, PPP loans approved through the end of June, about 5 million total overall in the US for 521 billion. So there's still quite a bit of money left in that program. and a total of 581,000 went to California, with 68 billion in the dollar amount. California getting about its population share. Couple of interesting, I have a couple little interesting tidbits below. I mentioned before the PPP loans, less than 150K, were 86% of the number, but 27% of the dollar volume. The average PPP loan size is 107 and the EIDL 79. So that's sort of where those two programs stand. Does anybody have any questions? Am I missing? I have, okay, there are some questions. Any that EIDL being refinanced under the PPP loans if a business has both loans. So you can't have both loans at the same time. If you got a PP, can you explain what you mean, Jork?
Yes, I just heard this like this week, is that if a business has gotten both the PPP and the EIDL, and once they submit the PPP forgiveness application and they get it forgiven, the EIDL that have gotten will be refinanced under the PPP terms. So it will not be a 30-year loan anymore, but a 5-year loan. And there are some exceptions to that.
That's really interesting. I have not heard that. We will look into that. Melissa, can you just make a note of that? And I will look into that and find out from the SBA. That would be bad.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. I just heard about it. I did a webinar this week with the SBA on PPP and EIDL. And he just casually mentioned it and sent me also the document. So it is on the Treasury website.
That would be really, if you can pop the link into the Treasury website, that would be really interesting. And that would be something that we should definitely raise a stink about. That would be bad. Because EIDL loans are probably a lot bigger than the PPP. And if you think you're applying for it and have 30 years and then you only have 5 years to pay it back, it's not that good anymore, right?
Yeah. And I think I read through the document, there is some exceptions to that rule. But I'm trying to log in with my computer.
Okay.
If you can grant me access, then I can share the link.
Grant you access to share. You should be able to share it in chat.
There we go. Just
pop it into chat. Yep.
Do it right now.
Okay, we will definitely look into that and raise that flag. That doesn't sound like something we would want to happen. Has anybody else heard that? Know anything about that? Initially, that was only for EIDL loans approved before mid-March. Okay, so we will look into, see how that goes and see what's up with that, because that's kind of scary. If I was a small business, that means either I wouldn't have done my PPP or, I mean, that seems like a change in the rules of the game. Thank you, Jork. Okay. Any other questions or issues with EIDL, PPP? Are people still sending their clients to PPP? Are they still seeing people wanting PPP?
So we did a survey of all our borrowers. To see who, one of the questions we just asked like in the last week is if you received a PPP loan. And so now we're going to go back and compare who has not applied for a PPP loan with those who we know have a social security number. We have a significant number who didn't apply for a PPP because they're undocumented.
Sure.
We expect that most of those who didn't apply for PPP are probably like independent contractors or some other like self-employed situation. and we're just going to do some education with them about how it can still be useful for them, even if it's like ends up being a small loan. You know, $5,000 grant is better than a forgivable loan is better than no forgivable.
Sure.
So
Sure.
we're planning to do that education with
Great.
with businesses over the next few weeks and get some of them to apply.
Great. Yeah. And everybody, I'm assuming everybody on this call knows that PPP was extended to August 8th. I should have probably mentioned that before, but I assume that everybody's getting, if you're on the SBA websites, you're getting 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 notifications of the extended deadline. But just in case. Anybody else see anything that they want to share about this, or their members or their clients, on who got PPP, who didn't? If not, I'll move on to appropriations, if that's federal appropriations. Oh yeah, sure.
It's actually about the EIDL Advance. It's not something in all of the things that we've been like pushing. We've not made a huge push on the EIDL Advance, but like, is this something that, like, my understanding is that basically you get approved for like $1,000 up to $10,000, but $1,000 for every employee that you have. Is that something that, like, we should basically just be encouraging all of our businesses who have, business owners who have a social to be applying for? Just like,
yeah, you should have been. Yeah, all along you should have been. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I know they reopened the portal. I don't know if it's still open. I know they did reopen it. Melissa, if you could just Google and check that. I think it is still open, but yeah, they should be applying for that.
Is it, there's no catch to this. Like, I just want to make sure I understand. Like, it's just, they're applying for the advance, and are they having to actually apply for the loan in order to get the advance?
You have to. Hi, Mark. Mark Herbert has joined us. Hello. Mark, you want to chime in?
Hey, yeah. Hey, Daniel. Yeah, so this is a little bit of a funky one. So they initially, yes, they have to apply for the loan in order to get the grant. It was intended to be an advance on the loan, so like an advance grant, regardless of what you get approved for the loan. And then initially, we had some indication from SBA that you could just reject the loan and say, I don't want the loan, but I'll keep the advance. I just heard yesterday that might not be the case, that you might have to accept the loan in order to get the grant. I have not gotten confirmation of that yet, but just wanted to make sure to flag for your point of like, is there a catch here? We're still trying to find that out. Like, at first we thought, and we were telling people, because SBA told us that you could apply for the loan, not take the loan, but still keep that advance as cash. And then I just heard yesterday from someone who works with SBDs in the SBDC space, that that's actually not the case. They just heard that you actually have to accept the loan, otherwise that advance might be at risk. So I'm trying to get confirmation, and if we do, I'm sure Heidi will send her out to the group. But it's a good call out.
Yeah, that would be really helpful to know. Just because I assume others are in a similar boat. That would obviously complicate our push for businesses. But if it's not the case that it complicates it, then we're just going to make a big push to get all of our businesses to do this.
Yeah. If we go back to the numbers, Nathaniel, the EIDL loans are definitely harder to get than and have to have better credit and better, there's definitely more underwriting criteria that goes into that than the PPP loans, I think. So even if they don't anyways, you can read between the lines.
Yeah.
I'm saying I can't advise you on what to tell your clients, but
but the thing, like, a lot of them, they might apply for it, and a lot of them are not going to get approved, but at least they'll still get the advance.
Right. That was kind of.
And I would imagine that actually many of our businesses who are struggling the most, who would be eligible for the advance, they're almost certainly not going to qualify. So very little chance. So okay. But yeah, it would be helpful to get clarity on that, Mark, as soon as you have that.
Mark, I don't know if you joined us for this talk about, and if you know anything about that. Once the EIDL, loan, if you get a PPP loan, George, can you say again what you? You get a PPP loan and it's forgiven, and then you get an EIDL loan. That the EIDL then the terms get changed to the PPP terms? Is that
Yeah,
right?
no, it was no. I thank you, George, for posting that in the chat. And yeah, Chelsea's correct. So essentially, if you look at the very first bullet, basically saying it's for folks who got an EIDL loan before PPP was available, essentially. And the idea was you can use all of that together as a PPP payment, so that you can get it all forgiven. That was sort of the goal. And so it was basically a PPP borrower, if you got a loan before January 31st, so before January 31st of 2020, or after April 3rd, you cannot refinance it. So it's only for those loans between February 1 and April 2nd. If you got an EIDL loan, then you could refinance it as a PPP. So it's not necessarily folks moving forward. It looks like according to this SBA procedural doc I just looked over.
Okay, so that's actually good, right? Because you could get that. You could give that part of the EIDL forgiven. And
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, good. So we fixed that. So all right. So we'll thank you, Mark, for that.
You can thank Chelsea. She was already there.
She was already there. Thanks, Chelsea. Group effort here for spreading information and clarifying things.
Yeah, thank you so much for clarifying that. That's very helpful.
Great. Moving on to, if there's no more questions about our favorite subject, PPP and EIDL. Federal appropriations, the House came up with their, the House Appropriations Committee came out with their recommendations for 2021. The process, the legislative process in the federal government does move on. They do need to pass a budget, ideally by September 30th, or else they go into continuing resolution. So first stop is the Appropriations Committees. Let's see, how'd we fare? We fared pretty well. This is not COVID relief, so the $1 billion I talked about the CDFI fund is separate. This is the regular budget for the CDFI fund. It came in at $273.5 million. That's an increase of 11.5% over last year. $140 million for SBDCs, which is an extra 5 from last year, and 24.5 for the WBCs, an extra 2 million. 35 million for microloan technical assistance, just a little bit of an increase. And then the rural programs that some of you might be interested in are basically the same from the fiscal year 20. So the next step is, so these are the House appropriations in the House. This would now go to the full committee. But the Senate has yet to release their figures. I don't have all the other figures. They're in the budget language, which is expected out on Monday. And so we'll be writing about this and chiming in about this in the Must Know probably next week. So any questions? This is just pretty normal. It looks like we did pretty well. It looks like we might be doing pretty well. We didn't see any decreases, at least on the House side. So great. If not, let's move on to the state budget. The state budget, we got a lot of good things in the state budget. Fully funded the small business assistance centers and the capital access program. That's that TAPE money, and the capital infusion money. That's the $20 million. Everybody knows there's also some built-in flexibility into that, allowing some expenses for stuff like mileage to serve people in more remote areas as people are doing expansion, some other admin costs, as well as some more marketing costs. So there's some flexibility that they did that is being recommended there. iBank is getting another 75 million. There's 25 million, and we're waiting to see what that 25 million is actually looks like, as well as another 50 to the state loan guarantee program. This is something that's really kind of exciting is the third bullet point. There's $10 million for Social Entrepreneurs for Economic Development Fund. And that's for those of businesses that are either that have limited English proficiency regardless of immigration status. So that is really exciting. I'm not 100% sure how that's going to work, but it's going to flow through the workforce development organization. So we'll make sure that we try and connect the workforce system to you all. And just so you know, we had on Tony's call yesterday, we did have a little bit of a conversation about connecting the workforce with our TA providers and with the entrepreneurial services, just sort of for this. So it's all sort of coming and gelling into something we've been fighting for a long time. So I think that money would be very exciting. Nathaniel, I'm looking at you. That might be interesting for you guys, as well as I know some of our other members down in LA and in Watsonville, El Pajaro, and Inclusive Action for the City, and whoever else is serving. I know Prospera serves other immigrant, possibly people who don't have, who are undocumented. So that's really cool. Another really cool thing along the same lines is that the EITC was expanded for ITIN holders. It was maintained for everybody and expanded to include ITIN holders. And then there's an 800 minimum tax that was waived for new businesses. This has been on so many people have tried to pass this over the years, and it was finally included. Cameo was going to have a bill on this pre-COVID and work with Greenlining on something like this to waive it for low mod income business owners, but it's being waived for everybody. So anyway, there's some issues possibly with that, but it's being waived for everybody. And then the other piece that we've been working on a lot, and Mark Herbert from Small Business Majority, in case some of you don't know who he is, if you haven't met him yet, he sits on the Cameo board, and he's a great partner. Mark, I forget your title, but he kind of leads the California effort. He doesn't kind of lead, he does lead the California efforts for Small Business Majority. We've been working really hard on this DBODF, Department of Financial Protection and Innovation expansion, was what they call deferred without prejudice, meaning it's not in the budget, but it's not in the budget yet, and there needed to be a lot of work done in order to make it better. So Mark, why don't I hand it over to you, just so I'm not doing all the talking, to talk a little bit about our efforts there.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Thanks, Heidi. Yeah, Heidi's done quite a significant amount of work here, so it's been great. So I'll turn my camera so I can see y'all. So good afternoon, everybody. Happy Friday. So I'll just make this pretty quick. So it's pretty exciting. So currently, as many of you may know, Department of Business Oversight has very narrow authority. So, right, they can go after their licensees who are abusing consumers or small business owners, depending on the type of license. But there are huge gaps, like in the regulatory framework that exists, that DBO has no authority over. And one of those big gaps is the small business financing space. As you all know, predatory lending for small business can be rampant. And of course, we're very concerned about that happening this fall with how stressed small businesses are going to be. Governor recommended expanding DBO to give it this umbrella authority so that it had UDAP powers, essentially state CFPB, to go after bad actors in the financing space, really focus on the consumer side. But there was actually small business language in that initial recommendation. Then COVID hit, everything sort of changed. It became very unclear whether this was going to make it or not. And to Heidi's point, where we stand now is the governor wants it. Both the Assembly and the Senate didn't include it, but said basically, yeah, but we'll still talk about it. And so now we're at a point where they're trying to hash out the final details, and it sounds like we're hopeful, but the Senate and the Assembly would have to adopt these new authority for DBO, and then if they do that, then what we're going to continue to do is ensure that small business financing landscape is included under DBO's sort of regulatory authority. So the main goal is give DBO this expansion authority so that they can do the investigation, do the market analysis, have predatory practices authority to go after bad actors in some way. And then if that does happen specifically in the consumer space and in general, then we just make sure that the regulation and the law ensure that DBO has this authority to also pursue abusive practices in the small business financing space. And what that would also do is it would allow SB 1235, which is the bill that Cameo did huge work on to support to pass, that is transparency for small businesses, because currently that bill has no enforcement. It's just private right of action. So if this passes, functionally what will happen is now DBO could actually go and enforce that law. So it's exciting. It's close, still a lot of work to do, talking to folks in the Senate and Assembly side to try to make sure that this makes it into the package.
And Mark's modest. Mark did a ton of work on it. It was a great collaboration, as you all know. And I wanted, to give shout out to you for that as well. So it's and as well as everybody on the call who supported the SB 1235. It seems like back in the day, but great. Does anybody have any questions or comments or? Sorry, you unmuted.
Yeah, it's Sarah, and you can tell who's about to talk, right? They get on video and unmute. Mark, thanks for the overview. Thanks, Heidi. Also, Mark, a couple of us, including Nathaniel and I, just received inquiry from CRC to provide some testimonials around clients who might be able to speak to any financial, how they've been otherwise financially harmed, to support the passage of the support from Department of Business Oversight. And
wow,
anyway,
Kevin is on it. We had a call this morning. He's on it.
Oh, good. I just wanted to make sure these are all aligned with what your efforts too, right? This is all connected.
Yes.
Okay.
Kevin has joined the call. So the other thing I wanted to mention, which is where Kevin was on the call, is we've been actually working with the consumers, which is really cool because it's a new coalition. The consumers and the small business people have kind of definitely been work in silos on policy, and there's a lot of overlap. And I think we finally broke through. We definitely think that a lot of our small business owners act as consumers, especially when they're doing, looking at small loans of like 30,000, 50,000. And they're not, you all know, they don't have sophisticated as CFOs or anything like that, or financial people in their back pocket. You are their people, and if they don't come to you, then they could run into trouble. So yes, this is CRC did join that call, and we were talking about looking, doing some media on that. Mostly we're looking for Sacramento. I've got my eye out for Sacramento, but if you guys have people that are willing to talk as far as, and from other publications, where it'd be great if we can get a story or two and get some media.
And just
so
on that,
I wanted to make sure that it was a coordinated effort, and it sounds like it is. Okay, great.
That's great news. Thank you, Sarah. And also, if any folks are in LA region or even in the San Diego region that could produce stories, that would be really helpful. Obviously, the pro tems out of San Diego and the speakers in the LA region. So those stories are really helpful to make it local.
Yep, excellent. If it's okay with everybody, I'd like to turn our conversation to discussion and get some feedback, hopefully, on two issues. And maybe I'll do that. I was going to do the second, but I think this might be, there's two issues. I'm going to pop them into chat. I had them on the slide, but I don't think we need the slide. and I'm going to take the second one first, and that is ACA 5, which is a resolution that was passed, an Assembly constitutional amendment that was passed and filed with the Secretary of State at the end of June. And what the resolution says, it's a resolution to propose to the state of California an amendment to the Constitution of the state to repeal Section 31 of Article 1, therefore relating to the government preferences. And what that is, it's a repeal of Prop 209 that was passed in 1996 that prohibits the state from discriminating or granting preferential treatment to. So Prop 209 got rid of affirmative action, basically, and the Assembly has passed and what that means, a resolution to propose to the people, is that they put it on the ballot. So there will be a ballot measure that the Assembly is putting on in the November ballot to repeal getting rid of affirmative action. So putting affirmative action back into state policy. And I wanted to test people's temperature on how they feel about that. If anybody has some thoughts.
I mean, I think that it's an opportunity for, so I believe that Cameo should take a position in support of this ballot measure, which would basically, my understanding, you're saying it would undo preventing affirmative action.
It would put affirmative action back into policy.
Yeah.
Right now,
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that there's historically, this maybe has not, unfortunately, has not been thought of as like as the purview of like the financial industry or economic development. It's oftentimes thought of as like a workforce issue or
college admissions.
Yeah, but yeah.
Even still.
Yeah. But I think that this is an opportunity for Cameo to take a position, Cameo to help educate member organizations around like why this is important, and to push member organizations to step up our game from a policy advocacy standpoint, to connect the dots around racial equity and racial justice.
Thank you, Nathaniel. I mean, that's that's some of our thinkings. I don't, but we want to make sure that it jives with everybody else. And if you feel uncomfortable of responding in a group, feel free to just email me, or I'll pop Cameo's address into Melissa. If you could pop our office address, and you can send an anonymous letter if that's better. But Ron, I saw you unmuted.
Yeah, we're in support. We've already taken a position, and I think we've, written letters somewhere, but yeah.
Okay, great. Excellent. If you have your letter, I wouldn't mind getting a copy. It would be helpful.
Yeah, I may have just signed on to something.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I haven't seen anything to sign on. I just know the Cal Black Chamber, has issued a big statement, and so if anybody does have a letter that they've seen.
I've seen some letters from, I'm pretty sure, 1 or 2 API groups, which, yeah, so.
Great. Okay, great. Anyone else want to chime in on that, or can chime in? I know some of you do not, are not able to, either for your organization, or if you could ask your ED to chime in and let me know what your thinking is on this issue. I greatly appreciate it. We don't want to take a position that goes against our members, but yes, Chuck.
Yeah, I probably can't take any advocacy position on it because I don't know how it impacts the community colleges. I know it impacts like the UCs and CSUs, so
sure.
I guess I can't really say anything too much on that since it impacts education.
Sure. Okay, well, like I said, Melissa will pop our our address support. Human, I'm not surprised to put not our email, our snail mail address in there. So great. And if I hear silence, I will assume silence means that we're going in the right direction. So if I don't hear any other dissenting voices, and I'll put this out, obviously we'll put it out in an email as well. Thanks, Melissa. Great. All right. So then the other issue that I wanted to kind of get people's idea on is what they're thinking about the employee versus independent contractor issue. Cameo did not take a position on AB5 last year because the bill was such a mess, basically, and I think, you know, it's come to light that it was very messy and that it wasn't well written, and there was lots of Swiss cheese and lots of carve outs, and this person's good for this person. I know from Cameo's standpoint of view, we had to bring on someone who's Susan Brown as an employee. She was a longtime contractor, and with the passage of to be compliant, we brought her on as an employee. So that was something. Apologies, if you can hear that. That, you know, it's affected us. I know the SBDCs were dealing with it. I know that a lot of nonprofits were dealing with it. Zenny, and then there are a couple of there are a couple of things that are coming up, and we are going to be asked to weigh in on the issue. One of the one is which we're probably not going to weigh in on is the Uber, Lyft. There's a ballot measure that they're going to put on, and which is just basically a carve out for that. And then there's 1850, which I'm having trouble kind of figuring out who it applies for. It just calls for more exemptions, and I'm not sure it really clarifies anything. So I was just wondering what people have seen in their organizations and what people have seen, or what people are thinking about the employee with their small businesses. What have they said to you? Any insight?
This is Chuck. I just have a concern, like from the SPDC standpoint, because California is kind of unique, and we've always had, you know, mainly independent contractors for advisors. Other states, a lot of times they'll have either full-time or part-time employees for the advisors. So, and just knowing a lot of the advisors for the SPDC program, that they're not really interested in being employees. They want to be independent contractors. So I'm worried how it might impact the organization.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I don't exactly. Yeah, I'm not. Something that we. I know that a lot of them have had to.
And I just got a notice from our director at Tech Futures Group through the SPDC for NorCal. Now they're going to require all the advisors, of course, to show their business license as part of this too. So they're
right. So it's a B2B. B2B is allowed, but yeah. Anybody else? What are you seeing with either your small businesses or your employees? How, you know, how Cameo should weigh in? I mean, there's, you know, we promoted self-employment and independent work for a long time, for the last almost the whole time I've been at Cameo. You know, we want to make sure that that activity is something that people can make a living from, and people could start their own business without necessarily having to go through the whole, you know, becoming an LLC or what have you. But you know, at the same time, we do recognize, you know, we want people to have good jobs. You know.
So you said that with the, I forget the number of the ballot measure.
So I don't know the number of the ballot measure. I don't know that if it's what the proposition is going to be, but it's the Uber, Lyft, DoorDash ballot measure. And we've decided not to take a position. We're not going to support it. We're not going to, I don't think we're going to not support it, but we do have to come out. Cameo does have to take a position on this issue because it's something that's near and dear to our heart, and maybe we will end up weighing in on that. But I know there's some people who, think that should be a good thing. I'm not sure it's the Uber drivers. We want to make sure. It's very nuanced, right? We want to make sure that the Uber drivers and the Lyft drivers that are self-employed, that want to do it and are running their own business and doing it, are doing it in a way that benefits them, that's not getting them, that's actually self-employment and not being dictated by the concerns of the company, right? Because a lot of what we hear is, right, their pay scales get changed, their hours, you have to drive this hour if you want to get paid this thing or whatever, so they dictate, right now the companies dictate the terms of the agreements with the drivers, so, and the payment.
Yeah, I would actually, I think Meta will definitely take an opposition position to the Lyft Uber ballot measure. I would actually encourage Cameo to consider doing that because of this perspective that yes, it is a nuanced measure. Like AB5 is a nuanced piece of legislation that definitely we all see could be improved and should be improved. But it should be improved through the legislative process and not be hijacked. This conversation around job security and benefit, the security of benefits tied to how you make a living, should not be hijacked by corporate interests and dictated to us at the ballot box as this is the corporate world's response to how we handle fixing.
That's a
interest of.
I mean, I agree with you on many things about the putting things in the ballot box and legislating by ballot box. There is AB 1850 that is on the ballot, on the docket this year, which is also a Lorena Gonzalez bill. And if anybody has opinions on that bill, I'd be curious to hear them, just because I've read it. It's more carve outs. It seems like it's improvement for some, but is it it's just also piecemeal. The whole thing was just very piecemeal. So instead of having an intent, they legislated all these different professions and everything. And what about the new professions that we don't even know are going to exist in 5 years? Is that going to be, that's sort of, I just think it was not a well-written piece of legislation. So AB 5, and then AB 1850 is trying to correct that. So I don't know. It seems like it's a step, but it's still messy. So, well, we're at time. If anybody wants to chime in on any of those pieces, I would really welcome your input. If you didn't want to say it, but you've written something, or you have thought of something, just please do email me, and I'll pop my email into it, to the chat. And with that, I will wish you a happy Friday and have a great day. Next week on Thursday, we'll be doing prep for Advocacy Day, and Advocacy Day is on July 21st. So if you haven't seen the invite for that, look out for it in your email. Thanks, everybody. We will see you soon. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Heidi.